Thank you, Jimmy. I was so intrigued and absorbed that I almost forgot I'm supposed to announce the next speaker. Right, so thank you for that very upbeat presentation and a look into disruptive technologies that are changing the digital landscape across all sectors. Right, so now, before we move on to the next speaker, I'd please like to request all of you to tweet away, post social media updates. Don't forget to use our hashtags, which are displayed over here. Also, there are QR codes which will lead you to the latest program schedule. If you want to scan them, they're on your tables. All right, now, our next international speaker, the second one of the day, is William Baubin. He is an accomplished advisor and director for multiple organizations. Asfar has already mentioned this, but I would like to mention this again, that he is currently the largest international investor in startups in Pakistan. He's invested in 17 Pakistani startups, which he will talk about, I'm sure, in his presentation. He has been ranked the number 3 All Asia. He's been ranked the number 3 stock picker overall for Hong Kong, China, and the number 1 stock picker for tech, media, and telecom. He sits on several boards, and we'll hear more about him from the man himself, William.
So thanks so much for the time. So I think the goal of the day is to talk a little bit about disruption. So I'm going to tell a couple stories. The first one is the story of China. So I started doing tech investment about 26 years ago, and started in Asia, then back to the US, then to Asia. And China was a huge story. I started covering technology in China in 2003. And what we've seen over the last 20 years is a real transformation, an economic transformation. Almost 750 million people out of poverty. Now, the government played its role, and for us on the investment side, we can't really have much of an impact there. But technology for us was a huge driver. And the biggest impact is really focused on economic independence, people being able to work and make a living. So there's 3 main drivers: inexpensive internet, a inexpensive device, whether it's a PC or now a smartphone that actually works, and then payment rails that work. And it doesn't need to be online payment. Actually, cash on delivery is fine. Hi, could you go somewhere else? Thanks. Sorry, a little distracting. Not much sleep. So, yeah, so I would say the one thing that the government did very well in China to drive growth is to get out of the way, to not be involved, if at all possible. So what did we see happen? Well, I guess the first step is export. So I worked, first time I visited Alibaba, 2003, started working with them. We were their bankers on their IPO. Spent a lot of time with them, 05, 06, and that was B2B export. But what really made Alibaba very valuable is that they drove economic independence in China. So if you look at the value, just pure numbers, the value of startups or the value of this tech economy in China, when I started in the market around 2003, 2004, it was only $1 billion US. I think it peaked out around $3.5 trillion. And all of that value was captured by startups, was captured by new companies. So why am I here? So our goal as investors at Orbit Startups is we're bringing the knowledge and the understanding of 20 years in the trenches in China and later Indonesia and India to emerging and frontier markets around the world. We think that there's a huge opportunity in Pakistan, and that's why we started investing here in December 2019. A little rough on timing, because COVID started right after that. In fact, I invested in 14 of the 17 startups in Pakistan without ever actually coming here, and without ever meeting the founders in person. Technology is, can actually transcend borders. But I think, Pakistan doesn't need to be like Indonesia. Pakistan does not need to be like India, where you have Chinese firms on the one side and American firms on the other side controlling the market, controlling the internet. I don't think that Pakistan needs to face what you see in India with a second colonization. So I'll give you a couple of examples of what we're doing here, okay? So we've invested in some companies you may or may not have heard of. One is called Dastagir. Another one is Digicata, Takata. A third one is 24/7. We're the first VC into these companies. They were very small when we invested. And what they're doing in the trenches every day is digitizing small businesses, whether it be a market seller or a stall owner or somebody selling beetle nut on the street. And the traction that we've seen has been amazing. Because what you do when you digitize a small business is you cut out the middlemen and women. We talked about middlemen. You remove them. And when you remove middlemen, you're putting 20 to 40% more money, cash, in the pockets of these small mom and pops, these small businesses every month. So we saw in about a year and a half, our companies digitized from 0 to 1.4 million businesses here in Pakistan. 1.4 million in 1 year. In 1 year, we're tracking transactions from 0 to $3 billion US per month, not per year, per month. Tracking those transactions, enabling that business to happen. So when you digitize these middlemen, you digitize the middlemen out, but you digitize the small, medium businesses, you can make delivery much more efficient, and you're putting, again, more money in the pockets, 20 to 40% cash in the pockets of these family-run businesses every month, as high as 80% more cash. And so what happens is you get companies that are doing almost 300 million in sales that most of you here in the room have never heard of, because they grew 10x in the last year. So I'll give you another example. So we talked about small businesses. The next one, and this is very popular, is ag tech. So when you digitize these small businesses, a lot of them are selling food. So we have the demand for the food. So what's the next step? Well, you move up the chain and you try and help the farmers. Now, middlemen have been taking advantage of shop owners for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. They're also taking advantage of farmers. So we have the demand for the outputs, for the grain, for the vegetables. Now we're looking to apply technology to hopefully disrupt and remove the middlemen, disrupt how agriculture is done in this market. The third area that many of the speakers talked about is education. So what are we doing here in education? We are one of the more active investors in online digital education around the world. Not just investors, but we also donate. I guess a proud son of Pakistan, the founder of Khan Academy. When Bill Gates donated, it's not a company, it's a charity. But Bill Gates donated 1.5 million. I think Google donated 2 million, and our fund donated 5 million to support this free, open access to education. But we do invest in companies that make money in education. One here is Nearpeer, where they help the sort of white collar workers kind of upskill to get better jobs. This is opening up economic independence, opening up opportunity. The last one, and I just added this because people keep on talking about freelancers. So if you can learn programming, you can make $50,000 a year. But if you can learn Instagram, which many people here know how to use in this country, you can actually do $150 a project. And before the currency devaluation, we were looking at Pakistan freelancers being 1/6 the cost of others around the world. With currency devaluation, it's even better, it's 1/10. And instead of making $50,000 a year, you can actually make $12,000 a year, and you don't need to know how to program, you just need to know how to use Instagram. So what has happened the last year? I'm actually very optimistic. So we had a horrible flood. And there's blips, but in the 17 companies that we work with, there's basically no impact. We've seen inflation, and there's, again, blips, but overall, we've seen very little impact. Month after month after month, US-denominated growth. You get a little blip here and there, but the trend line is uninterrupted. Politics, I don't really talk about, but no impact. And then currency devaluation, a couple of them, 30, 40%, really no impact. So you cannot really stop technology. You can slow it down, but you cannot stop the disruption driven by digitization. And nobody could really stop it in China. They tried. The only reason why the telcos and the banks, or especially the banks, are still alive in China is because the government put their thumb on the scale and slowed down startups. For our vision of Pakistan, you cannot really stop something that puts 20 to 40, as much as 80% in people's pockets every month. But we want to do something different than China, right? We're partnering, and that's what we're here for. So we have Jazz. Jazz invested in one of our startups. Very happy to see that. Dastigir, that I mentioned. HBL is investing in our ecosystem. So I have two asks. One is capital. We have an insatiable demand. It's not very large right now, but it's growing quickly for capital for nano loans, micro loans, small, medium business loans. They're not exactly loans. They're Sharia compliant, but they're structured properly. The return of capital is great. They're paid back, much more reliable than a large corporate loan. And these loans are to drive transformational things that transform people's lives. When you have a smartphone, you can get a job. When you have training, when you get education, you can get a better job. The second ask is, again, be part of the disruption here. Don't be the disrupted. So please reach out for partnerships. There's a lot that you can do by partnering up with startups. Because as we saw with China, the startups started off small, but they ended up very big. And we hope that they can drive a brighter and a more positive future for Pakistan, not just large corporates, but the small mom and pops. And if you're a middleman or a middlewoman, I'm sorry. So thank you very much.